Weekly update for Friday, January 17th. Special thanks to Jeff Seiler, who just before Christmas sent along, Dave, for your archive, one copy signed by me too. Jeff Seiler, one of the contributors to Vark Wars. So, am I the only person that's got a copy of Vark Wars #1 signed by me, by Manly Matt Dow, and by Jeff Seiler? I might even have to double down on that one and send this around to the other Vark Wars contributors to get a copy signed by everybody. Thanks again. We got an intermittent feature that we're going to have the next while, Ode to Overstreet. I know my fan base is not really Overstreet friendly for the most part, but I got to tell you, having picked up the 49th anniversary comic book price guide for research into financing for the California trip, some of the market reports are really good. Darren Adams of Pristine Comics wrote a piece about Stan was fortunate, talking about Stan Lee, because at the time that the 49th edition was going to press, the market reports coming in at the end of 2018, Stan Lee had just passed. Stan was fortunate to live long enough to see his characters come to life on the silver screen, while at the same time being worshipped by a worldwide fan base. His humor and inner child were with him until the very end. My favorite Stan Lee moment took place in 2010 at the Stan Lee Tribute Weekend, in which Stan Lee would receive the Brendan Celebrity Star, which is the Las Vegas version of the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Due to a last-second cancellation by another company, the event was in need of a $1 million comic book display that had been billed as part of this milestone event. I had previously made arrangements to have a number of books signed by Stan during the event. It was during a phone call in which I sought more specifics about the private signing that I was asked if I would be interested in putting together the event's $1 million comic book display in honor of Stan Lee. Would I? Could I? Heck yes, I would. In fact, I would be honored. I had 2 weeks to prepare. I proudly displayed a vast array of comics that I felt best represented Stan's accomplishments at Marvel, and the $1 million display was on. I had displayed the key issues from predominantly the 1960s and 70s, such as Hulk #1, FF #1, Amazing Fantasy 15, Tales of Suspense 39, along with typical keys from both decades, and with a trio of books I took personal pride in: Captain America #1, CGC 9.9, Iron Man #1, CGC 9.9, Iron Man and Submariner #1, 9.9, and of course an empty display with a tag that simply read, "No Prize Award." Stan stopped by and complimented the display and introduced me to his daughter JC, who later returned and commented how she really liked the Hulk #1, that it was one of her father's favorites, and how proud she was of him. She then asked if I was going to the Iron Man 2 premiere that evening, which of course I was. This was a closed screening, and the theater topped out at approximately 100 seats, or only 100 had been invited. However, the venue was small and intimate. As we arrived, it was open seating, and Stan sat in the middle seats approximately half of the way up from the screen. I immediately grabbed a seat for my wife and I directly behind Stan and 2 seats to the left. The theater remained dimly lit, and from my angle I could see Stan's reaction throughout the show. I enjoyed watching Stan's reactions as much, if not more, than the show itself. It was surreal as my mind would flash back to my days as a then 14-year-old kid, writing this man on a monthly basis, to now being invited to and watching this incredible movie, one row behind Stan, who was watching it himself for the very first time. I thought to myself, this is truly the highlight of my comic collecting life. I was awestruck just trying to imagine what was going through his mind as his characters came to life. Afterward, the lights came on and he stood up, and as he turned around and I congratulated him, he then asked me in typical Stan fashion, "Well, what did you think of the movie?" To which I replied, "In all honesty, Stan, I was watching your reaction as much as I was the movie. What was going through your mind as you watched your characters come to life with today's technology?" He replied, "It's incredible. Who would have ever thought that these characters would be so popular? They did a fantastic job. I loved it. And the cameo wasn't so bad either, was it? It was an experience I will never forget." So copyright Darren Adams of Las Vegas's Pristine Comics. But I did want to share that with you, and we will be revisiting the Overstreet guide a couple of more times up ahead. And that'll do it for the weekly update this week. Hope we'll see a bunch of you again next week.